Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for a moment of silent reflection for our servicemen and women throughout the world and for those who have passed away in our community. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Smurl?
Here.
Mr. Schuster?
Present.
Dr. Rothchild?
Here.
Mr. McAndrew?
Present.
Mr. King?
Here.
I'd like to make a motion to take from the table Resolution number 254 of 2023.
Second.
There's a motion on the floor and a second to take from the table Resolution number 254, 2023. This resolution appoints Coney Bennett to the Scranton Planning Commission for a term of 4 years. It's being taken from the table and placed in seventh order for a final vote on the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved. Please dispense with the reading of the minutes.
Third order, 3A, correspondence dated July 6, 2023 from OECD regarding code enforcement report.
Are there any comments on any third order items? If not, received and filed. Do any council members have any announcements at this time?
I do, if I can pull it up here. Okay, so the Southside Neighborhood Association at McNichols Plaza is going to have a back-to-school fair. There'll be haircuts, backpacks, school supplies, community resources. It's going to be Monday, August 28th from 11 to 1. Supplies and services will be based on first come, first serve. Also, this Monday, St. Anne's Solemn Novena starts at the Basilica of St. Anne's. And that is all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McAndrew. Anyone else?
Fourth order, citizen participation.
Derek Greens.
Hopefully you're not in a hurry. I am going to say before I get up, I don't want this to come out of my time. I went to the bathroom and it was handicapped accessible and I was overjoyed. And I'm so appreciative that that was finally done. Nobody else is clapping? Okay, which picture are you going to take out first? Do you want to take it up there, or have somebody take it to you? Out?
They're going to go together.
Well, no, but, okay. All right.
Hey, what's up?
My favorite nurse and wife, Jill, has pictures of our recurring water problem, which we have discussed I do not know how many times. I remember Mr. West asking a couple times, is that hole on Myrtle or Ash Street? And those holes are still there. The number one injury in the United States is slips, trips, and falls. And you listen to your scanner every day, there are people in this city who have slips, trips, and falls and get hurt. And there's no reason our DPW can't fill up those two holes. There's a lot more stuff that needs to be done. The pictures my wife passed out, every time it rains, the water is just atrocious. There is no reason that should not have been fixed by now. Snow is going to be here before you know it. My wife is the closest operating room nurse to CMC. If you have mass casualties or some emergency, my wife has to be there. We traded in our Chevy crew cab Silverado, and we got a handicap van, and there's just all that water that's just going to be ice and frozen, and it should be rectified. This should not be a 20-year problem to get this stuff fixed. There's no reason. Our head of DPW came to my house. He said, oh yeah, I'm going to put in an RFQ and we're going to get it taken care of. Everybody here, Mr. McAndrew, Dr. Jessica, you've all said, oh yeah, why don't we get this done? Why isn't it done? And here we are now, once again, it's still not done. And it's a disgrace, the amount of dirt that I bring into my house, because they don't sweep our streets. I was driving down the other day to take pictures. There's still leaves on my street, fall leaves from last year, because the sweeper doesn't go up and down the streets because nobody has any idea when they're going to come sweep. So they come by and there's all the cars there. So they just, as I always say, we have the cleanest middle of the street. And then we go back to the whole water issue. You can look at those pictures. And the other one that I have is this one, which is the 1,000 block of Jefferson Avenue. Here, do you want to take that up? That is 1,000 block of Jefferson Avenue. You go into that area. It used to be part of where the railroad tracks were. And the train tracks are all still there. They're there, and they're just a hazard for people walking. They're a hazard for me. It needs to be ripped out and paved. That 1,000 block goes directly into all those doctors' offices and everything. But number one, there are no sidewalks on that road at all. The city built new sidewalks for that grocery store that's there, and I asked the guy, I said, who's paying for these sidewalks? And he said, you are. This is being done for the city. So if the city can put in sidewalks for a business, why can't we get our sidewalks done? And especially as something like that. I mean, there's kids that go there, there's people walking all the time. There's no reason that is not done. Did I have any more? What was my other thing?
That's it.
So I think you guys all do a great time. How much time do I have left?
1 minute.
1 minute. So in talking, all of you, Mr. West, Mr. Smurl, I did have one thing to tell Mr. Smurl. I'm a former scuba diver. I'm a former parachuter. There is nothing I enjoyed more than jumping off of something high. And these kids that are going and jumping into the gorge, we got to get a pool in there with a nice high dive on it. In Indianapolis, my sister's house, it has the 10-meter diving board on it, and I would love for us to have something to do like that. These kids would have so much fun jumping off something like that. And it's a lot of fun. People love to jump off stuff. My wife doesn't, but I sure do. But I just truly think all of you guys are doing a really great job, and I appreciate all of you. How much time left?
You're it. Done.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you, Mr. Raines. You too.
So, Mr. West, you're going to get all that stuff done for me?
Mr. West.
Well,
No more Mr. West.
well, Mr. West is gone, but we'll ask Mr. Voldenberg to
God West.
reach out to DPW, try to get an update as to what the game plan is to address these issues.
I'll follow up with DPW in the morning and with the water company.
Mr. Raines, I'm not sure if you know that the water company is going to be digging up that street this year, which is probably partially why that hasn't been done.
As I said to the guy at the water company, this problem is not caused by the water company. It's caused by the city putting 6 layers of pavement on top of the road. It needs to be milled down. So I'll tell you what, though, the water company did a big patch on the middle of my block, and it is fabulous. They did a beautiful job.
Thank you, Mr. Raines. Joan Hodowanitz?
Joan Hodowanitz, Scranton.
Well, I'm going to start by complimenting the city. I was walking down the 500 block of Lackawanna Avenue going to the dentist, and what did my wandering eyes see? The clock that the city owns has been repaired. Only took several years, but the clock works. Okay, also, I'd like to recommend to everybody, and you get a chance, and especially if you have children, go visit the Civil War Museum, which is now open in Marketplace at Steamtown. It's right in front of Crunch Gym on the second floor. It's beautifully managed. I think the guy that runs it is Hal Myers. He has ancestors from this area who fought in the Civil War. And the museum's displays and artifacts and records all have to do with the people from this area who fought in the Civil War. So please, I mean, it's a wonderful part of our history, and I wish that people would come and take their children to see it. It's open Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 11 to 4, and on the weekends, 12 to 4. Now, I was looking at the items on the agenda, and there was one on traffic signal improvements, which the legal cover sheet referenced the connectivity walkability study, which caused me to reflect back on questions I have not had answered. I was really surprised when you didn't ask the members of the parking authority that were giving you an update what they thought of that study, since it had specific recommendations, as you know, Mr. Smurl, on changes to parking in downtown. And the guy said, I'm kind of broadly aware of it, but he says, I think I'm going to go and download it from the website and read it. But here's what surprised me. The parking authority should have been consulted during that study. The Center for Independent Living, which represents many of our disabled downtown residents, should have been consulted. The downtown residents and business owners should have been consulted. But I get the impression that the connectivity study is a done deal, and now we're going to start seeing legislation going forward to implement it. I don't disagree with its objectives, but I feel like when we were going through the renaming of Spruce Street to Biden Street, yeah, we hear you, but it's a done deal, so just sit down and shut up. And I really do think, that the citizens and the taxpayers, people who either live downtown, work downtown, or drive through downtown, or for whatever reason, come downtown, should have a voice, and their questions and concerns should be addressed and not simply ignored. And I think that's where we're standing right now. It's not that the objective is bad or wrong or not supported. We all want to see improved safety, both for vehicles and pedestrians. But you treat us like children who have no right to say anything, Why? Because I said so. Okay? And that's the way I feel. I hope during fifth order you give us the status on the pocket park and what you got from Scranton tomorrow. And I also, I'm still waiting for an answer. Oh, tell me what's going on with the police contracts arbitration.
Status quo, they're still in arbitration, and
Yeah, Mr. Uffberg, ka-ching, 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 making a lot of money.
the mayor indicated she was hoping that'll be wrapped up very shortly.
Oh, yeah, that's what they've said for many months. That's what they said about the audit. Speaking of the audit for 2022, have they said anything about how that's going? Are they still going to get it in by the end of September? I'm just warning you that when you come back in September, that's the first question I'm going to be asking you, so please have the answer ready.
We're very optimistic.
And I still want to know what the city's going to do if we have another code red alert. That question you've never answered, and that's a public safety issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hodowanitz. Norma Jeffries.
Good evening, Norma Jeffries. I'm a Scranton resident. I only had one thing to talk about tonight, but then my paper is filled after listening to the presentation about the parking authority. Going forward, I don't know if it'll be appropriate because I do have questions as they're talking, and I'm always hoping that maybe council members would address some of the questions that we, the common people of Scranton residents, have. So I don't know if we know that the parking authority is going to be here, is it appropriate for us to read who's going to be here and send you emails of the questions so that you can address those questions to the panel as they're here?
We'll try to announce that in a timely fashion. They typically come, I think, every quarter, so.
Yeah, I was away on vacation, so, I'm a little bit behind in what's going on with council, but when I saw that they were here, one of the things that, when Mr. Smurl mentioned the credit card, he was right on. I do use a credit card now at the vending machines because I got tired of getting tickets, but the one that I use is only for, I call it my play debit card. I don't use the one that has all my living expenses on it for that very reason. I'm not quite so sure how secure the kiosks are, but I've got tired of getting tickets, so I did go and get myself a credit card, debit card, just for that reason. It does work well, as the gentleman was saying. One of the things that my question was, and I've been asked about it, is that the signs on the kiosk, does it say anything that after 5 o'clock you don't have to pay? Do the kiosks get shut down so that it doesn't accept the money? Because, people think I'm counsel. I'm not counsel. I just come here and talk. But one of the things that I've been asked is you can put money in those machines after 5 o'clock. I didn't know that. So I told him, I said, well, that sounds like something you need to go to council and ask about. So here I stand, asking that question, that is there some kind of shutdown mechanism that will not accept money after 5 o'clock, or what are the hours that they run? And then the second thing that the gentleman mentioned was, I can't believe that they don't have a more sophisticated system to monitor the kiosks. When he had the screen up and he had the line items, I was looking for something that had an update to their kiosk system. Do they update it and monitor even more closely the kiosks? We, as the public, should not have to call them and ask them about the kiosks and tell them that the kiosks are not working. And to go down and find a kiosk, and I've been in that situation where you have to find a kiosk that's working, it's very frustrating. And especially if you're only going to be in town at a kiosk for maybe 45 minutes or so. So I had a lot of concerns, and I was very interested in what he was saying. And I have to thank Mr. McAndrew for asking to speak up because, again, we can't hear back there unless they're told to speak into the mic. Okay, that wasn't on my list to talk about, but being that he was here. I was on vacation, as I said, and one of the things that I kept watching was street signs. Street signs, street signs, street signs. I went all the way up to Maine, up to Bar Harbor, and it was a wonderful vacation. And the street signs, not one street sign that we come across that wasn't legible, that we got to where we needed to go. And, it's just so frustrating, especially when I hear, and I go along with you, Dr. Rothchild, with the handicap. My husband had a handicap placard, so I know the seriousness of that and why, and when someone's parking there. But how can they jump to your item and get the signs made for the handicap? And yet I've been up here at this podium for over 5 years talking about the street signs. I'm coming back up from vacation, driving up 81, and I get off 81 there at River Street, and I'm thinking, nothing has changed. Not that I expected to in 2 weeks. I was only gone 2 weeks. but nothing has changed. So, when I hear Dr. Rothschild's talk that her signs are going to be made, that they're going to be marking the streets, they put signs up. So what do I, or what do we, the people of Scranton, need to do so that we can get more action on the street signs? And my time is up, and I didn't get to say all I wanted to say. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Jeffries. Right, can we check with DPW, just kind of get an update as to where they're at in terms of, I know that they were making the signs, it's just a matter of, actually starting to put them up. I know there was some talk about possibly, I think there's only 3 people in that department, possibly maybe putting out or subcontracting to get some of those signs up, but that needs to be a priority. We need to get that moving.
I will.
Bob Bolus?
Good evening, Council. Bob Wallace, Scranton. I want to make it still available that we still have disinfectant wipes available that we've been donating out. The past week, we donated a tractor trailer load to one of our local volunteer organizations here, donated by myself and President Trump. We've done it in Florida. We've done it in Palestine, Ohio. And we'd like more and more people in our area to make it available if they're interested, through myself, through the Masonic organization that I belong to, that we're making them available to everybody. So they could call my office in Troop 346-7659 and make arrangements to come pick them up, or if they want a tractor trailer load, we'll deliver it. The other part of this is I'm not happy walking into City Hall with the doors locked. I think it's a joke to try and call phones down here and get somebody to answer a bloody phone. Our time is as valuable and more valuable than those that we're paying. This is our City Hall. It's not councils, it's not the mayors, it's nobody else. And if we're worried about who's going to walk in here during the day and this and that, have the sheriff department do it, we pay county taxes. If we're that scared about what we're doing, we have a police officer standing here tonight. Why wouldn't that be possible for him to stand outside the door downstairs? We've had this hall open since I'm a child here. We need to take the locks off the door and open up our city to the people who actually made this city what it is today, and that's our citizens. This other nonsense here about neutral gender on doors, let's get realistic. It's men, it's women, period. There's no other explanation for whatever it is. Would you like your daughters in there while some clown walks in there? Some guy walks in there while your daughter or your wife or your sister or whatever it may be in there? It's got to come to an end. There's no more of this nonsense, neutral, gender neutral crap. We got to bring it to a halt. We started around here with this nonsense. I pulled in today and we have the queer flag still flying. It's over with. What's the flag, Mr. Schuster, behind you? What's that black flag say, sir? POW. That's correct. Why isn't that flag flying out to honor our vets, our fellow vets that didn't come home? We got one day, Memorial Day. That flag out there got a month. I'd like to know what honor they did. What war did they go to? What did they bring us? What freedom did we get? We got zero. Maybe we should open this up now to, maybe we want to come in and talk about our sexual orientations on our side of the fence. Maybe we should have that open up publicly, and we could discuss it. We discuss everybody else's orientation. Let's have it on our side. Maybe it'll be a little more interesting because you'll hear both sides of the story. And, that's the stuff that happens. Tomorrow at 6 o'clock, Lorraine Cummins, former commissioner, and myself are holding a City Hall type meeting for everybody to come and speak out tomorrow at the Holy Cross Hall on 5th and Broadway, which I own. We're holding it there tomorrow night. And the purpose it is to address the grooming of kindergarten children in schools with drag queen story hour, castration, surgical of 14-year-old kids. How about puberty blockers, rendering them their service at 10 years old? This is only the tip of the icebergs. We need now to worry about our children, not what other people have in their mind, what they should do, or we should follow this. I just come back from a trip down south in Florida, and I saw what's going on there, and I saw the people now standing up and saying, wait a minute, enough is enough. They're protesting it because you haven't offered our moral support. And I say me and others. We don't have to be led by the nose by somebody for some other reason. This is America. Everybody has a right to their own sexual orientation, their own privacy. But that doesn't mean we have to accept it and see our children persecuted because our officials will not take the stand to give them the right under the Constitution they're entitled to.
Thank you, Mr.
And it's
Bowles.
time we wake up and start doing what we need to do. And that's take care of the kids first. Thank you.
Les Spindler?
Les Spindler, city resident, homeowner. Last week, Mr. Smurl, you talked about driving up Linden Street, and you hurried up to get through the 3 green lights. And what makes you think the stop signs are going to make it any different? I think it's going to make it worse. People are going to rush to the stop signs, and if they don't come to a red light, there's just a stop sign. They're going to roll right through. They'll see nothing's coming. And what's going to happen if 3 or 4 cars get there at the same time? Who's going to go first? You might have 2 or 3 cars trying to go at the same time, causing accidents. That this walkability study is ridiculous. When I was a kid growing up, downtown was a heck of a lot busier than it is right now. You didn't have empty storefronts. You had a Globe store and Oppenheim's and Kresge's and Woolworth's. You had 3 movie theaters and countless other stores, which I can't remember them all. There was no walkability problem. My friends and I used to walk to town and shop or go to the movies almost every Saturday. There was no walkability problem. Why all of a sudden is there a walkability study? And if you want to get more people downtown, the people who were here before is most of the problem why nobody comes to town to shop. It's too expensive. You can't afford to park down there. And plus, like I said, there's not that many businesses as there was when I was growing up. The next thing, that paying a fee if you have firemen come to your house for a fire, that's totally ridiculous. We pay our taxes, number one, have our garbage picked up and for fire and police. Nobody should be getting a bill if their house is on fire. It's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard of. And I've argued for years, I think that garbage fee is illegal. That's why we pay our taxes to have our garbage picked up. Okay, next thing. Any date on the pavings for the streets? Like,
I'm going to address that in 5th order tonight,
okay.
Les.
Okay, and another thing, I sympathize with the gentleman who spoke before with the water problem. God knows how many years I've been coming here trying to get the problem in my corner fixed. And then I get promised over a year and a half ago that the whole intersection is going to get done, and we're still waiting for that. It'll be 2 years in October. So I don't know what the answer is, but something's got to be done. I think if Tom Preamble was the DPW director, things would get done. Because he told me when he was the director, he would watch the council meetings, and when he heard about a problem, he would get it taken care of. So I think we got to get the right people in there to get things done. And when I asked the mayor about that, why did he resign? She said, "Oh, it's a personnel problem." Every time they don't want to answer questions, it's a personnel problem. He was doing a heck of a job, and it's a shame he's not here anymore. Next thing, So I brought up this many times about Family Dollar on Main Avenue, people coming out the wrong way. Is there any news about that?
I believe that we inquired about that, didn't we, with the Scranton Police? Did we get an answer?
The traffic officer referred it to the city engineer, who is looking into the matter.
Okay, so the city
I'll
engineer
get
is
a
looking
status.
into the situation.
It's definitely a safety problem. All right, that's all I have at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Spindler. Virgil Argenta.
Virgil Argenta, Scranton. I'm here tonight regarding the condition of the Theodore Street overhead railroad bridge. Please take note of the pictures. And after looking at the pictures, would you agree that it looks to be a danger to the community? Theodore Street's a daily, well-traveled roadway. Many trains travel over the bridge 24 hours a day. We have North Scranton Little League, the still under construction North Street Playground, Neil Armstrong School, all within 1 block away, who must walk under this bridge. We have the apartments at North. It's a Colts and a school bus route. Electric, phone, cable lines run through this bridge. The bridge is over 100 years old. Do you know if it's owned by the city of Scranton or the railroad? And whom will assume responsibility? Who's been maintaining this bridge? Do we have any inspection reports, and can you provide them to us? Will you request an emergency inspection by a structural engineer after viewing those pictures, stating the condition and recommending for this bridge and signing their name to that report? North Main Avenue Railroad Bridge. Oh, I'm sorry. The bridge bounces when the trains go over it. The bridge is also home to hundreds of pigeons. We all remember the Minnesota bridge collapse and the many train derailments we've had lately. I'm not going to get into all the scientifics with you, but a buildup of pigeon dung contains ammonia and acids. If all the dung isn't washed away, it dries up and it turns into concentrated salt and water. It combines with salt and ammonia. It creates small electrical chemical reactions that rust the steel underneath. Oxidation on these bridges, usually from bird dung, reduces integrity dramatically. Like an inch, 1 inch half piece of plate can be reduced to 1/8 inch because of the oxidation. That's a 75% reduction. This bridge has pieces that have literally evaporated. There's going to be a financial collapse very soon. Do we know if any of the trains traveling through our area are carrying radioactive material or hazardous chemicals? And are we prepared to handle that? The way it looks, we don't seem to have a very good record of maintaining or inspecting our bridges. Parker Street, Howell Street, Greenwich Street, Lackawanna Avenue, Elm Street, Broadway Street, Luzerne Street, South Webster Avenue near McNichols Plaza, the 2800 of North Main Avenue, the 500 of West Market Street, the North Main Avenue Railroad Bridge, the Luzerne Street Railroad Bridge. You get the point, to name a few. Putting up orange cones and barricades, yellow tape, doesn't fix the problem, nor does it protect the citizens who pay taxes. We are the investors in the city. The mayor was bragging at her City of the Union about the credit rating and the ARP money. That's great. Now let's use it for some improvements in our city. Instead of us being like a city on welfare, waiting for our next free handout in way of grants, address the issues now while it's under your watch, Mayor. Don't leave here and leave the infrastructure worse than you found it. So in closing, Council, I'm demanding that the Theodore Street Bridge, the area between Ralph Street and Return Avenue, be closed to all traffic until you can assure the citizens of Scranton it's safe for all of us.
I'm going to bring it up in fifth.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
People approached me over the weekend about this.
Okay. And also, Mr. King, is there any word on the inventory list of the city-owned properties, vacant lots?
Right, did we submit a request for a list?
We did submit it last week, and I'm awaiting the list.
Okay.
Also,
We could check on that.
thank you, I
for next
appreciate
week.
that. Also, a list of the Job Johnnies or Porta Labs, whatever you call them, locations and how much they've been costing us.
Frank, I'm not sure if we inquired on the porta potties, but if we didn't, if we could request like a comprehensive list.
Rubicon, I only have 40 seconds left. So the Rubicon, do we know how many more trips the smaller trucks have been making to the landfill? And do we know what goes on with the guys that are on the back, the throwers, when these trucks are going to the landfills? Do they have a job, or is there a task that these guys are doing as the truck has gone to the landfill, or are these two guys off the clock? How are we watching the two guys that aren't on the back of the truck? And how many extra trips the smaller trucks are making to the landfill, if we could find out? And is that the cause for the overtime and the guys working later, trash being picked up and being missed? Thank you. And if we could, the bridge, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Argento. Mike Egan.
Good evening, City Council. Mike Egan, 500 block of North Webster Avenue. I live in Webster Towers. We have a lot of handicapped. There are a lot of sidewalks where when they come to an intersection, there's no way for the wheelchairs, the walkers, the walking rollators to get up to cross. And I contacted Senator Casey's office, and somebody told me in there that the city was supposed to do that to be in compliance with the ADA Act. So is that true? And if it isn't, why don't we look into it so we can, you know, us disabled can go down and support the businesses. You know, I fell at the corner of Hancock and Vine. The curb is about this high, and there's no way, and across the street, on the other side, it's the corner of Monroe and Vine. There's a huge multifamily house. And I mentioned it, I saw the landlord out there, and I mentioned to him, people are parking so they block the sidewalk, and you can't get through. And a couple times I had to walk in the street, and people came flying up the street, not expecting me to be there, and I almost got ran over. So is there something that could be looked into that we could get this resolved? Because I would love to go shopping downtown, but I'm afraid to, and I'm not going to pay Uber and the taxi companies $10 to go from North Webster Avenue down to the mall. I don't have the money to. I'm disabled. I don't have the money to do that. So I would like to walk. And the bus is, it's hard because the bus goes up, now it used to go up Webster Avenue, now it goes up Quincy. And so I still have to cross streets that don't have the curbs cut into it. I like to go to church. I am a Catholic. I like to go to Immaculate Conception on the corner of Taylor and Gibson, I think it is. There is no way from North Webster or from Taylor Avenue to cross Pine on this side of Pine because there's no way to get the walkers up and down. And I'm not supposed to be lifting, but I do therapy did give me an idea how I can get the walker up. But I don't feel comfortable since I fell. I don't feel comfortable doing that. So I would appreciate if we could look into this and get this solved because, like I said, I would love to go downtown and I would love to support the local businesses, but if I can't get there, it's hard to do. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Egan. We will take some notes here. We'll look into those curb cuts for you as well. Frank?
I've got them.
Thank you. Ron Ellman?
Thank you, Counsel. I don't have too much to whine about tonight. Last Thursday's paper about the state of the city article, it mentioned Mrs. Cabrini, the business administrator, said that, I'm not positive if I got the figures, I think she said 80% of the projected revenue was in and 56% of the waste fees. How can they be different? If you pay your waste fee with the taxes. I just wondered about that. And on the walkability, one of my neighbors asked me if you need a sidewalk, because they were more welcome to travel around my area. You have to avoid junk cars on the sidewalk and all the cars on the sidewalk for the illegal boarding houses on North Main. But I'd like to see the walkability for the whole city, not just downtown. It seems like our mayor is just so obsessed that downtown is like a little dollhouse of her own that she can do what she wants with. I think they collected, what was it, $68 million in American Rescue and $20 million last year. She seems to have no control. There seems to be no control of what she wants to do with it. I know there's some put aside for the work, sewer work and so forth. You people are just so detached from, let's say, a quarter of the city's residents, that for some reason, that seems like the ones that the low-income people seem like the ones that I always run into that are telling me something. Yesterday, the Salvation Army held an event with, I guess they sponsored the utilities. 278 people showed up. That was, I think, 95 households that are in dire need of financial help with their utilities. So many people have a fear of this coming assessment will be nothing but a fraudulent worth of our properties. Like I said, I get that paperwork last month, $195,000 they got my house appraised at. You've been there. You know my neighborhood. Is that sort of, you're talking about people from out of town working for an out-of-town company telling us what our property's worth. They have no idea what property in Naog isn't worth what it was when they started. I don't know. I hate to see. I do have something nice to say, though. I was talking to a lady that said the nicest thing about she had to use the police and the fire department, and she had nothing but praise. And I know I mentioned a few seconds ago the waste department people. I sure don't have any complaint against them. They do. Roseanne always has some kitty litter, and one of the things, it's got to be awful heavy for them to pick up, throw on the truck. One other thing real quick. Could you answer what I asked about the taxes? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ellman. That exhausts the sign-in list. Are there any other individuals like to speak?
Tom Coyne, Manuka. First, I would like to thank Tim on the ECTV YouTube channel. Thanks for the offer for an Irish coffee. Maybe an Irish coffee, but no beer for me. Now on to council's issues. We had a reference here about the health concerns in Code Red. Homeless and smoke health concerns by the Home Rule Charter, Section 50215, are City Council's power to meet public emergencies affecting life, health, property, and the public peace, verified by Section 60916, the power and authority of the mayor, not to enact, but to enforce any emergency powers that council may establish by ordinance to preserve health, welfare, and the safety of the citizenry. Why is City Council afraid of the power granted exclusively to you by charter? Smoke and Code Red, write it, pass it, and make the mayor comply. This is your duty. It looks like Code 360 is also a bad copy because the powers to council relating to public health were not ordinance required. Public health emergency is by emergency order of council, and the mayor has no veto power in this case. It resides strictly with this body. Next, pilots. Can we get a list of who and how the city has reached out on the request of pilot donations, and who has not responded or declined? Mr. King says the administration has reached out to people. Provide a list of the organizations reached out to, please, and if they have since responded. Let's not talk about RFP for a HUP test. A payment in lieu of taxes is not a HUP test. You seem to want to confuse and commingle both of the issues. On to the pool. Mr. Smurl wants another study done for the Niagara Park Pool Complex to pay for it. And after the research is done, reach out to the entire community for ideas and feedbacks. So you can, again, go back, have new plans, and create new plans based upon the feedback. Have you ever thought about public input prior to paying for designs to avoid repeat costs, as the administration never puts a plan out that the public is happy with or would desire with? And I doubt that's a mistake. Let's talk about rentals. Have we gotten any response yet about the universities and other nonprofits who offer rental housing, aka dorms, charged as a rental fee? As I understand it from the past, it's been Scranton's policy for taxes for fires and overbilling trash. It's charge first and then respond to legal issues later. Why not just bill them for the rental fee, $45 a year per dorm, and let them challenge it like you do with everything else? On to questions about the future. It was asked, what difference do you see in the city in 5 years from now? But that's not the question. What have you achieved sitting in this seat? How have you reduced cost? You have had special sessions to hide the administration's wish not to make employees responsible for overtime. What was the city's resistance? And if they have resistance, why can't the mayor appear here and defend the no paperwork for overtime policy? Dr. Rothchild mentioned a number of times that you often see people in the Penn Avenue handicap spot occupied by a person in the parking space who does not have a placard and want the police to patrol it more. I wonder, how often have you called to report to the police illegal parking when you see it? Or do you just note it, walk by, because it's somebody else's problem? For the walkability study, as Fozzie Bear would say, it's the walkability study. The study's a joke. Maybe the use of red light cameras would stop speeding and gunning to beat the red lights. There's a lot of problems here, and part of it is this body is given certain powers, and this body tends not to use them and passes the buck to the mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Coyne. Mr. Dobson?
Good evening, Council. Dave Dobson, resident, taxes paid. The train came up again. There was a train accident out in Ohio, and I will reiterate that in 2018, the Office of the President waxed regulations on rail and rail maintenance, and also in banks. The bank failure with the Silicon Valley Bank tied up 8,100 payroll accounts. It could have been 3 people, could have been 30. So keep that in mind when we're pointing a finger. Now, this has been going on for years with me. We have too many, way too many tax exempts in this town. I don't care why they're tax exempt. I really don't care. And if they're unwilling to at least contribute to a pilot, then they should be willing to sign a petition. And actually, it would be, even if you are paying a pilot, signing on a petition would be in your best interest anyway, because it's ridiculous that you're being asked to pay it, and only a few actually are at 40% or near 40% of tax exempts. And furthermore, on tax exempts, in 1958, they established a new tax law, and tax exempts were supposed to be silent on political issues. No political issues are allowed. However, they left them sneak it in, I think, in 1959, but under the original law, all political activities are not to be conducted, any, by tax exempts. And myself, I deeply resent it. I don't need everybody poking their nose in, and then on top of it, paying no taxes. Now, let's get back to the traffic study. I have a very old article here from Brian Fulton's that I recently harvested from the paper. But we astutely study our astute studies to ensure that our astute studies were properly astute, to ensure proper astuteness to our studies. And I am nearly totally against turning this town on its head. I think it's just a coup de grace to the business district downtown. It's a coup de grace. If I think I'm gonna come and get my car plastered and T-boned and have some jerk that couldn't wait his turn at a stop sign and come out and say, you cut me off, or even worse yet, we'll get a government in Pennsylvania that thinks it's okay to carry loaded guns in the car or something and start pointing stuff like that just because they felt they were in a bigger hurry than me. I don't worry about where the next stoplight is. I stop at this stoplight, if need be, and I pull out and I look where I'm going. I wasn't driving, but I was in the car that hit a kid. He ran catty corner across the street at North Scranton High. His older brother was beckoning him, no crossing guard. he practically just ran. I notified the driver. He practically just ran into the hood of the car himself. And a year later, $19,000 lawsuit over it. And he wasn't seriously hurt. But it's just ridiculous that, I mean, 500 Lackawanna Avenue, 30 million, Hilton, 5 million, the mall, a couple million. It's all just money over the dam, and we're constantly after a redo of Scranton downtown. So I'm going to leave this article with
Thank you, Mr. Dobson. Is there anyone else that would like to be heard?
Good evening. Things are...
Excuse me, can you state your name? I'm sorry.
Rick Little.
Thank you.
I think people around here have to recognize the what's the word? The chain of command and how things work, civics, and especially in the judiciary, and how it relates to full-blown communism. I first, and how that communism is based on fear. You're scared. You're going to lose something. You know, I was scared. I was going to lose my child. I realized that the family courts in New York State, this is criminal racketeering. When the state gives $65.5 million to one New York City attorney for the child law firm, well, that tilts the scale in justice. So when I moved to Scranton, you know, I see that just about 10 years ago, the FBI came in and they looked into the other name for the attorney for the child, which is the guardian ad litem, and you know, found all these weird things. And that's about the same time, you know, I certainly watched the whole trial of, you know, an ex-Lackawanna commissioner and the chief judge, I guess a family court judge, Civarella, and how all that went down. I said, yeah, this place is good. But my experience since then is, there's a lot of problems, and people have to realize that this communism based on fear, which I certainly saw when I went to East Berlin in 1986 and got holding the AK-47 looking at my Nikon F, and I noticed that all the people on the street, you know, people coming in from West Berlin, you know, all the guys are pimps and all the girls are whores, really. That's what it was. They wanted something, you know, and you get a Coca-Cola, it tastes like dirt. And it's been going on a long time. And there needs to be a change in the thinking, because people have been taught in the schools too long, and they aren't taught the civics, and they've been led to believe that, you know, everybody's racist, and that, you know, I have special rights for my identity, and I'm a victim, and they grow up this way. And it's been about 30 years. When I started in the family court, I had a little girl in the year 2000, saw her every day for the first 3 years. It was great. It was the best part of my life. And then you know, the state of New York is giving me visitation, and certain times I can talk on the phone calls, you know, and I didn't have a cell phone, any kind of, you know, that sort of technology. So the whole thing grew up the same way. And the last time I saw my daughter was at a supervised visitation, and it's the judiciary, how they keep things going with process. And they're highly paid. I mean,
it doesn't take much to keep the process going, and they kept the process going with me for 15 years. And then all of a sudden, my daughter turns 18, and she's been parentally alienated, doesn't want a relationship with her father. This is happening across the board, and I saw it start in New York. In New York State, when Hillary Clinton became senator, and all this stuff started building up. And I was a Democrat, but I changed in 2015, and I see we need to get rid of this Democrat thinking that's been going on. I mean, and what I mean is the same people, and especially in the media and the judicial system, it has to change.
Thank you, Mr. Little.
Mark Payne.
Is there anyone else like to be heard?
Fifth order, 5A motion.
Mr. Smurl, do you have any motions or comments?
Yeah, just a few quick things. I read the article Mr. Dobson provided us on the one-way streets and how it is to control traffic and to process it through the city as quickly as possible. That's not the whole idea of the walkability study. It's online if you download it or just go online and read it. It explains reasons if three people arrive at an intersection at the same time, which one is to turn first. I mean, there's a lot of consideration of other people and how they drive, but if you just read it all, you will see all the questions that you had are pretty much in there. And there are going to be numerous meetings for the public to go to. This isn't something that's going to happen tomorrow. This is years of work that has to be done in town. It's not going to be cured, but I think by having one-way streets and rushing traffic through town, that was PennDOT's job years ago, was to move traffic, not to slow it down. It was to move traffic, and it moves pretty well downtown. And as far as how fast they travel downtown, I don't shop downtown because I can't run across the streets fast enough to get across before the lights change. So look online, read the study, and then when the meetings become available, go to them. And we were at the meeting. There was a few of us at the meeting, not a lot of people. So it didn't seem like there was a lot of interest, but the best thing to do, I believe, if you want to grow the businesses downtown, is slow the traffic down and do it the right way, not to push it through town. That's enough on that one. The playground mulch, I believe they finally got bids in for it, so that should be distributed through all the parks shortly. Thursday evening, I was up at the Recreation Authority's meeting, and there is a lot of interest in what we're going to do at Nyack Park as a city. I spent 3.5 hours there, and there were endless questions, and I think we could have stayed most of the night, but there's going to be a lot of public participation. The proposals that were brought back, we had 2 of them. I believe we accepted 1. But what it's about is everybody will have the opportunity to speak and say what they want for the park. And then after all of this study has been done and it's all brought together, then the design will take place. I mean, I don't know how else you could read this, but if you read the whole thing, that's how it's going to work. So if you want to be involved, go to the meetings and put your input in of what you expect at the parks and what you want in. That's all I have, Mr. King. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smurl. Mr. Schuster?
Yes, thank you. A quick one before I say anything else is on the way to the meeting tonight, I did get a call about the slide at the Trip Park playground. If we could just send it over to Parks and Rec. I guess there was some boards that were screwed into one of the slides that said "Do not enter." I did check it out before I came over. The screws are still in the slide, but there's no boards in the slide. I don't know if the city put the boards up to keep children off of the slide, or if the boards were attached by someone, I'm not sure, but it's the slide at Trip Park. There's some screws, multiple screws, probably about 10 screws sticking out. If they could just check that slide out and see what needs to be done there.
I will, sir.
Thank you very much, Frank. We did get a question today about the smaller trucks. It's been something I've been interested in since the city has put out the order for those small trucks. I didn't like the fact that we were getting the smaller trucks. I thought it was going to be more trips to the landfill, more wear and tear on the machines. So I am interested in Chris Smith coming over to meet with us. I thought that was going to be this month. Seems that it'll be in September. But I will like to see what they have to say about the small trucks. But if we could send a message over to Chris to see if we are making more trips to the landfill with the small trucks, or if all trucks are making the same amount of trips to the landfill, that would be great.
I will, sir.
Thank you. The bridges over in North Scranton and the one on Main Avenue and West Side in North Scranton there, they've been in disrepair for a long time. Could we reach out to the administration and see if they could, I do believe it's the Railroad Authority that would own these bridges, if they could reach out to the Railroad Authority and get inspectors over immediately to check those out, or if there's any updated inspection reports that they have. But if someone from the administration could reach out and get those to let us know where we stand with those bridges.
Well, I have contacts with the Railroad Authority I'll reach out to in the morning. And I'll also have the city engineer look at both bridges, Theodore and North Main, to start.
Yeah, thank you very much. That's all for tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Schuster. Dr. Rothchild?
All right, I have a few different things. First, last week I had brought up a couple of streets that trash hadn't been picked up on that we received a complaint about, and this week I've received more complaints about them being behind on trash not being picked up or missing trash. So I think Hertz Court was missed last week, and then Burt Street was late today. So I'm not sure if it has to do with the new routes with Rubicon. That's what I'm assuming, but I would like to ask DPW as to why some of these streets are being missed, because I haven't really been receiving these complaints like I have been over the past week.
I'll take care of it, Dr. Rothchild.
Thank you. And another thing I brought up last week was a property on Hampton Street, 1158 Hampton Street, and that is something that code enforcement is getting to and should be given a quality of life ticket for. But there was another question about the property. There was some confusion. One of the residents said that there was a sign up from the land bank that said asking if anyone wanted to purchase the property. But to my knowledge, it's not land bank owned. It's privately owned by out-of-town owners. So, Mr. Voldenberg, if we can figure out where that sign had come from, it's been torn down since then, but the resident's not really sure why that was there, what that meant.
I'll find out.
Okay. And for Mr. Raines' property and his comment, just gonna wait a minute while the sirens pass. I did previously discuss with him that American Water was going to take care of that street, and it was going to be on their projects, and that was why it was taken off of the paving list. But I had asked either an email or here if there was anything else that could be done as a temporary solution or fix for him, and I don't think we had received a response on that. Is that correct?
They did do some light work. However, with the paving scheduled, maybe they can bring the street sweeper every 2 or 3 weeks for Mr. Raines and his wife.
Okay, that was going to be my request about if a street sweeper could be out there.
A few small remedies till the work is done.
Last gotten over to that street. And then we'd also been told that they were waiting for some added money in the budget for some of those projects, so that one might be done either this year or pushed off to 2024. So I'd like to know if that's been decided yet, or when they'll have their projects budgeted out to determine when that will be done.
I'll find out, Doctor.
Thank you. And in response to Mr. Coyne had asked about the handicap spots, and I have previously contacted the SPD when I have seen that people are parking in those spots who aren't using the placards. So I'd have no problem being that person if I need to be, but I'd rather not. So, and then there was another response that I had in reference to the gender-neutral restrooms. I personally have no problem with them being there. A lot of places have gender-neutral restrooms. They're also called single-use restrooms. There's only one person in there at a time, so really shouldn't be an issue with anyone entering it unless you're not locking the door. So that's a way that you can ensure that someone's not going to walk in on you if you lock the door. And also on that note, I mean, you can use either one, which is nice, as opposed to just being designated to the one that matches with your gender. So if that's taken, then you have to wait for that one to be used. So I do find them more efficient, and I like having them here in City Hall, and I hope that more places take the lead and have gender-neutral restrooms if they have single-use bathrooms, as opposed to having them designated for a specific gender. And on a similar note, with regards to LGBTQ youth, I just wanted to point out that there have been numerous studies and research over the years that when LGBTQ youth are not accepted by their families or kicked out from their homes, that they have a significantly higher percentage of depression, of drug and alcohol use, of suicide. So I'm happy to, bring those studies in or reference them if that's needed, but the LGBTQ youth do much better when they're accepted by their families, and I don't think it's really a great use of time here for people to attack transgender youth, and I also don't think that in any way is going to help them. I think that's going to hurt them and the community even more. So that's all I have to say on that, and that's all I have for fifth order tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rothchild. Mr. McAndrew?
Yeah, I have a few. So poor Mr. Raines, here he comes again. And this issue has been at least 3 years that I've been here. And so he was all excited. I don't blame him. His road was going to be paved this year, right? There was light at the end of the tunnel. And then now he's told, or we're told, and he just found out that his street's not going to be paved until next year, all right? So that's fine. I'm glad that for once the water company lets us know. Because as long as I've been here, most of the time they didn't. They would have paved that street and dug it up 6 months, 3 months, whatever later. So, but I think he needs it more than just sweeped. This guy has an issue with his driveway every winter. And if it's not going to be paved till next year, guess what? He's going to have another winter dealing with this. So I don't think the little issues that he's begging for should have to wait until next year. So could you please reach out to DPW, go back over and find the money? He's told there's no money. There's money flying around. 450 grand tonight went for parking, a grand. So please take care of this, or make sure they take care of this for this guy, so him and his wife can get in and out during the winter, once and for all. All right, second, so the garbage, yeah, it is an issue. I get calls almost hourly about garbage, and it is Rubicon. This is Groundhog Day. Last year, when they started Rubicon, for 1 week, they shut it down and went back to the routes. And then we asked for them to come in with an update. This is last year. And they said, yeah, sure. Larry West said, yeah, sure. And then they pushed it until after our recess. Fast forward 1 year, they were supposed to come in since April. Guess when they're coming in? We were told last week they're coming in September, right through recess. And why? Because the problems are starting the same time as last year. They started using the Rubicon, and it's not working, and guess what? People's garbage aren't getting picked up, and then we're incurring overtime. Did the mayor give a reason why we're waiting till September? When she told you last week?
I think because Rubicon actually it got started so late, I think they wanted to give it some time to actually work some of the kinks out before they come with the full report in September. I believe that's what you said.
Well, what I believe and what I've heard is, well, first of all, work the kinks out. We've been paying for these guys for 2 years. Their contract's almost up. So the kinks, there should be no kinks. What I heard is the last 3 people that worked for Rubicon on our contract left. That's what I heard. So there's no one to come until September. They got some new guys. So that's the reason with the trash, folks. It's not that hard to read. And then next, so when our Parks Director was hired a month ago, he stated that he would get his certification, or promised, when the certification and training process started in June. So one of the lovely ladies that swim at Western Field reached out to me today and asked if that occurred yet. You remember that conversation, don't you, Mr. Voldenberg? And
I do,
I
sir.
couldn't find the email where it actually states that I was looking before, but could you circle around and make sure, ask him, hey, Sid, you know, first of all, how did the lifeguard training go? How many do we have? Are we good to go for the whole year? And did he receive the certification also?
I'll ask those questions tomorrow.
All right, thank you. So then, last Friday, I was at, was it Friday or Saturday? No. Friday, I was at the fundraiser for the Scranton Police Department for the Scranton School District. Great event. Very proud of the police department that run this every year. But somebody came up to me, it's in North Scranton, somebody came up to me with the same pictures or similar pictures that Mr. Argenta presented tonight to us on the Theater Street Bridge. And it's deplorable. These pictures look like Chernobyl. It's ridiculous. It's scary. It's very scary to me. So, you know, just to piggyback on Mr. Schuster here, where are the inspections? I know that you have you have a contact, because this has come up before, not this actual bridge, but I remember an issue coming up. I think it might have been the one on Luzerne towards Railroad a couple years ago. I know you have a contact. Please reach out to them. Definitely, we have a new city engineer that's very capable. I agree. Send them both out, because wait till you see the pictures. I'm going to send them to you. It's horrific. We need reports. We need why and when they're going to fix these. Also, somebody during caucus sent me a picture of the website for the parking, and it says in the browser when you click on the website, not secure. I asked if it's secure, didn't I? They said, yeah, sure it is. In addition to the kiosk. So I'll send you that picture. Just send it to them. Just say, hey, what's up with this? Because it doesn't make sense. All right? And ask why. Also, what else I have sent to me? So there's an issue that was brought to my attention from the Sunoco to Division Street and 17th Street near the Russian Church, Peter's and Paul's. The road is horrible and deplorable. Instead of going into great detail, I will send you this also, Mr. Voldenberg, so you can pass it on to the proper departments.
Thank you, sir.
And what else do I have? I believe that's it. No, that is all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McAndrew. I have a few follow-ups. We had a city resident inquire about grants for Pappy's Kitchen and Connell Park. Pappy's Kitchen received $83,600 to support startup costs for the Puerto Rican restaurant, including hiring new employees, interior renovations, marketing, and more. The monies for Pappy's includes a food cart for remote use. There was $300,000 grant for improvements to Connell's Park, which included wellness loop trail, playground maintenance and updates, dog park upgrades, green infrastructure, and ADA accessibility improvements. Scott Thomas, the CEO of Scranton Public Library, the no parking here to corner sign at the library book drop unit has been updated by ABM Parking to allow easy vehicle access for book drop-off. Thanks to Danielle Dolan, ABM Parking Coordinator, and the ABM team for their assistance. As indicated earlier, I was downtown on Sunday. I had to get tires put on my car, so I went for a little stroll around town, and I was walking up Lackawanna Avenue, as Mrs. Hodawanitz was, and I looked up and saw that it was 9:08, and I couldn't believe it because it's been 11:20 for about 8 years. I was a little surprised because I thought, I actually stood there to make sure that it turned to 9:09 and 9:10, and it did. So I took a picture and I reached out to the mayor. I thought that they were coming this week, but apparently the group from Chicago or whatever, or not from Ohio, came in and repaired that clock. So I was thrilled to see that that's up and running again. The paving list. City Council asked DPW and the administration to please provide regular updates to council regarding any changes to the annual paving list. Council members advised that several streets of great concern to both the residents and council since the last paving project were removed due to updated work projects proposed by the water and gas utilities. As Mr. McAndrew indicated, that's a good thing that at least we're not going to go paving streets that are going to get ripped up. I think the communication, I think, is key there. But still, it's important, I think, that we update that list and make sure that those streets that were earmarked to be paved this year, make sure that they're on that list for next year and they don't get jumped by others. Fire property list. Councilmember Dr. Jessica Rothchild asked the current fire damage property listing to be expanded to include a current status, any pertinent notes, dates, timelines as available. She expressed concern over the long periods of time that the fire damage properties remain in city neighborhoods. Code Red notification assistance to city homeless population. City resident Joan Hodawanitz asked that the administration establish a process or protocol for assisting the city homeless population during Code Red declarations related to extreme heat or the recent air quality issues related to the Canadian forest fires. Council asked what the administration currently has in place, and also additionally to that, talk to Dr. Cessna and see, you know, if there's a plan, now that we've been through this, to make sure that there's some type of plan for the homeless in the future should this come up.
I will, sir.
Homeless camps. Residents and council asked for an update and next steps on how the city of Scranton is addressing the growing number of homeless camps along the Heritage Trail downtown and now extended to city neighborhoods bordering the trail. If we could send over a request for to the administration. Weston Field bathhouse repair and other Weston Field complex issues. Resident Virgil Argenta asked for the latest update on the repairs related to the bathhouse at Weston Field. He also asked how Parks and Rec was addressing the large groups that use the complex for soccer games and how the food trucks, drinking alcohol, noise, and vehicles in the park are being addressed by Parks and Rec and the Scranton Police Department. I think that the food trucks are allowed, quite frankly. The drinking of alcohol is, you know, obviously not permitted on public parks. So that's absolutely something that, you know, maybe Scranton Police could do some drive-bys and check on that and the noise levels. Listing of city vehicles. The city, Virgil Argenta asked council for a listing of all city-owned vehicles. Same resident asked for a number of all portable toilets, as mentioned earlier, that are being placed at points in the city, and the rental costs for each of those units, if we can get that answer. As far as the hub test is concerned, council is looking to have an update on the next steps related to the RFP for the hub test. Okay. So Joan Hodawanitz had asked about the delinquent real estate tax. When is that going to be on the website? So we got a response from the STO Assistant Solicitor. At first glance, I'm reading what the response was now. At first glance, it seems that placing delinquent real estate tax information on the city's website would be some combination of extremely difficult, very expensive, and open the city up to liability that it currently does not possess. The following are the initial problems that they see. The amount of delinquent taxes on the property changes each month. Someone would need to be in charge of maintaining these numbers or investing in some software that would automatically do this, both of which are not cheap options. Also, this opens the city up to liability if the incorrect amount is ever posted on the site and someone relies on this information. Of course, we can put disclaimers on the site, as well as indicating that the amounts are not certified and should not be relied on, but there's still some risk there. This also applies if delinquent taxes are posted for someone who is not actually delinquent. Essentially, right now, the burden and risk is on the Tax Claim Bureau. There would have to be a very big incentive for the city to take on the above risks, in his opinion. That's the response I got.
Mr. King?
Yes.
With that one, could we reach out and see who used to do that? It was something that was there for years, so could we just find out who used to do this service?
Frank, if you could check into that, I'd appreciate it.
I will.
In terms of the gender-neutral bathrooms, I'll tell you what, I really appreciate gender-neutral bathrooms here in City Hall, especially, once you hit 60, you really have to go to the bathroom quickly, and having the opportunity, 2 options as opposed to just one, and having to stand in line, I think that's a great thing. And, in terms of LGBTQ, in terms of the diversity in our city, I think that's what makes our city a great place. Mrs. Hodawan has indicated in the past, the people in this city are what makes the city a great place, and I couldn't agree more. And I think the more diversity that we have in this city and the more welcoming we are, I think it makes our city a far better place. And that's all I have at this time. Thank you.
Mr. King, the request for the Porta Labs.
Yes.
I don't know how many, I do know the Recreation Authority orders and pays for the ones at Nag Park, and there may be a dozen. Sometimes with the concerts and stuff, there's more, or private events. So I don't know if he's looking for those separate, and I knew the Recreation Authority pays for them separately. But Parks and Rec also pays for theirs separately from their account. Now, I don't know other departments, I just know about the parks. So if they're looking for the full amount, you're going to have to go to the Recreation Authority too, Mr. Voldenberg, if you're looking for the full amount that they have.
Okay.
And they're all different accounts.
Sure. All right, thank you, Mr. Smurl. Fifth order.
5B for introduction an ordinance establishing a no right turn from North Main Avenue to Pond Avenue, no left turns for trucks from Pond Avenue to North Main Avenue, separate the intersection of Pond Avenue and Dean Street via line striping to improve traffic operations and safety.
This time I'll entertain a motion that item 5B be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second?
On the question. All those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
5C for introduction an ordinance authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials to execute and enter into an intergovernmental agreement of cooperation by and between the City of Scranton and the Scranton School District for the creation and employment of the Shared Community Development Coordinator position.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5C be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second?
On the question.
On the question, just to clarify this, and I know what I think, but there's 2 community development people in the budget. One's a community development manager. I assume that it's not this position. And there's a there's just a development coordinator. The full salary is listed at $51,133.62. This is the full salary for this individual. It is included in our budget, the full salary, but this is a split with the school district. So if we could just ask the business administrator if we could just get what the actual breakdown is, just for clarity on this position, and I mean, maybe just for clarity, why the full salary is in the budget. And do we have a job description for this position? If we could ask that of HR.
I'll ask, sir.
Thank you.
I think that they listed in there, they have a list of all the responsibilities expected. On the question also, I called Mr. Voldenberg this afternoon after I was reading through this legislation, and I noticed that there was a discrepancy between what the city's obligation is and what the Scranton School District's obligation is. One had $51,000, the other one had $52,000. Were you able to get an answer on that?
We did get an answer from the law department, and they filed an amendment to correct the amount to the $51,000.
So
It was
okay.
a typographical error.
So what we're
from the
passing
school
tonight is the 51, whatever.
Yeah, that's what I
332.
Right, because the second one was listed as 52,000. I figured it was a typo, but I just wanted to make sure of that.
But that is going to be a split, so about 25,000.
Right, yeah, it'd be, yeah, roughly, what, 25.5, 26, what have you. Okay. All those in favor of
Well, I
introduction?
have a question
Oh,
too.
go
So,
ahead.
yeah,
Sure.
I'm taking a look at this too. So I know we talked about this, sharing the responsibility for grants. And, you know, of course, the salary is going to be split down the middle. And who they report to, it says, you know, one is going to be the director of community development. But where is this person going to work out of? City Hall or the district?
I think I read in the legislation that it's the
Maybe I missed
district,
that.
I believe.
Where?
I think the school district is what I read.
Okay. All right, thank you.
I'm now going to add to that. So could we also ask what the hiring process was, and is the person currently working? Thank you.
On the question, I think this is a great way for us to be able to work together and combine resources with the Scranton School District. Although I thought that the title of the position was different before too, if I'm not wrong. But I could see why that would be confusing with the other development position that's there in the Office of Community Development. That's all.
One more quick one on the question. So you know what? If I was taking this job, I'd want to know where my pension's coming from. I want to know if it's coming from piecers, because the city doesn't have a good a plan as piecers. That's interesting to see how her benefits are going to be, where they're coming from, what is she getting?
So what entity the benefits are coming from?
Well, think about it.
Or if it's a school district, is there a union that they're associated with at the Scranton School District, and is there a union they're associated with here in the city?
I don't know.
And which would they fall under, if any?
Yeah, well, these are good questions, so let's get them before.
Yeah, if we can get them before
Not against
7th
the
order.
hire, just
No,
clarity.
no, and on the question, I plan to vote for it and introduce it, but let's try to get these answers before we, move it along.
Okay.
All those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
5D for introduction, an ordinance revising traffic patterns on Marion Street to one-way traffic westbound from Wyoming Avenue to Penn Avenue, revising traffic patterns on Marion Street to one-way traffic eastbound from Wyoming Avenue to North Washington Avenue, restricting eastbound Marion Street traffic approaching North Washington Avenue to right turns only, and restricting westbound Marion Street traffic approaching North Washington Avenue to right turns only for vehicular and pedestrian safety.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5D be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second?
On the question.
On the question, it's a very simple question. Can we just ask if any of the neighbors or residents were asked for any input on this decision?
A number of them were, I know the majority were in favor, but I'll ask those questions.
All right, thank you.
And on the question, I know that I know some of the neighbors up there, and I think that this is going to be a vast improvement. It's still, I don't think it's still not going to slow traffic down when cars are flying out to Greenridge Street from the light at Larch to Greenridge Street, or from Greenridge Street out to Larch. But the one thing it is going to do is it's going to eliminate cars trying to pull out from Marion and trying to both from the east side and from the west side. It's very dangerous if anybody's ever tried to pull out there. So now, all traffic will go east on Marion toward North Washington, and all traffic will go west on Marion toward Penn Avenue. And I think that that'll be a vast improvement in improving safety on our streets, so I applaud that.
And they also inserted the digital speed limit sign on Wyoming Avenue recently to control speeding.
Beautiful. Okay. Thank you, Frank. All those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
5E for introduction and ordinance, ratifying the execution of time-sensitive temporary construction easement agreements between affected City of Scranton property owners and the City of Scranton to complete the Federal Emergency Management Agency projects in accordance with FEMA debris removal construction plans, which are to be completed by the deadline of December 31st, 2023.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5E be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second?
On the question?
On the question, Mr. Voldenberg, I sent an email about this memo. So did council receive a memo from the law department?
We did with the legislation, but I had no record of receiving it prior.
Okay, so I'm not mistaken there. We didn't get this piece of... In the backup documentation, there's an Exhibit A, and Exhibit A is a memo to council from the law department from June 13th, but we don't think we ever received this memo?
I don't have any record of receiving it. However, I may be incorrect, but I don't.
Can we inquire?
Yes. Could we see if Solicitor Esquire has some kind of documentation that she sent this down to council on June 13th? And if not, I'm going to probably ask that this be removed from the legislation as it's incorrect.
I definitely will.
Thank you.
All those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
5F for introduction, a resolution, appointment of Robert Shoemaker, Scranton, Pennsylvania, as a member of the Environmental Advisory Council for a term of 3 years. Robert Shoemaker's term is effective upon execution of the resolution and will expire on July 31st, 2026.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion item 5F be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second?
On the question? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
5G for introduction, a resolution authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials to execute and enter into a contract with Barry Isett and Associates to perform a 3-year engineering service for an infrastructure project.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion item 5G be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second?
On the question? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
5H for introduction, a resolution authorizing the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation to upgrade certain traffic control devices in the city of Scranton and to make all necessary applications for such on behalf of the city of Scranton.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion item 5H be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second?
On the question?
On the question, Frank, could we reach out and see if we can get a memo or a timeline put together to be sent to council to see how things from this walkability study are going to be implemented and when they plan on being implemented, so we have a heads up?
I will, sir.
Thank you.
All those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
5I for introduction, a resolution, appointment of Michael D'Antona, Scranton, Pennsylvania, as a member of the Zoning Hearing Board for a term of 3 years. Mr. D'Antona will replace Robert Gowan Collins, whose term expired on July 1st, 2023. Mr. D'Antona's term is effective upon execution of this resolution and will expire on July 1st, 2026.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion item 5I be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second?
On the question? All those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
5J for introduction, a resolution, reappointment of Sean Walsh, Scranton, Pennsylvania, as a member of the Zoning Hearing Board for an additional term of 3 years. Mr. Walsh's term expired on July 1st, 2023, and his new term will expire on July 1st, 2026.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5J be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second?
On the question? All those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
5K for introduction, a resolution authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials to execute and enter into a contract with BKP Architects, P.C. to perform NAOG Pool Complex Feasibility Study Update and Pool Complex Construction Design.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion, item 5K be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question.
On the question, I have a few that I'm going to ask Frank. Can we find out who was on the ARPA selection committee that decided upon this bid proposal? Did we, so this one you may know, did we get a copy of the other proposal? We did?
They're on the procurement. There's two of them.
They're both on
the procurement.
OpenGov.
I don't believe it was there.
They're on OpenGov. All right, I'll take a look at that. Could we get in writing from the business administrator that they feel that this is a comparable price for this study? The price seems to be exorbitant in my opinion, but if we can get the business administrator to let us know that this is a comparable price.
I'll ask that.
On the question, the other bidder was significantly higher than this one. It was, I think, about $100,000 more and didn't include as much as this contract does. That's all.
On the question, I know that, we're probably all sick of studies, but I'm happy to see this study happen because, it's going to be a push toward putting a pool at Naog Park, and this is that next step toward getting a swimming pool at Naog. So I'm just happy to see this move forward.
Mr. King, just, where I come from on this one is a lot of times some of these studies, such as pool design, may come from a percentage of the total of the build. So that's where I'm going with the price here.
Sure.
It seems, I don't know where we derive. I saw in the backup documentation where we derived the price.
Right.
But just I'd like to know from our business
I
administrator
have no problem
if it's
with
comparable.
absolutely. We should know that. All those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
5L for introduction, a resolution. Appointment of Joseph Holland, Scranton, Pennsylvania, as a member of the Environmental Advisory Council for a term of 3 years. Joseph Holland's term is effective upon execution of the resolution and will expire on July 31st, 2026.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion, item 5L be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question. All those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
Sixth order, no business at this time. Seventh order, 7A, for consideration by the Committee on Public Safety for adoption. File the Council number 74, 2023. Authorizing the removal of the existing no parking signs located on the 1700 block of Ash Street and replacing those signs with new R7-302 no parking symbol arrow signs at adequate intervals along both sides of the 1700 block of Ash Street and memorialize this no parking zone within section 439-25C of the City Code.
What's the recommendation, Chairperson of the Committee on Public Safety?
As chairperson for the Committee on Public Safety, I recommend final passage of item 7A.
Second.
On the question. Roll call, please.
Mr. Smurl?
Yes.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Dr. Rothchild?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mr. King?
Yes, I hereby declare item 7A legally and lawfully adopted.
7B, for consideration by the Committee on Public Works for adoption, file to Council number 75, 2023, establishing S1-1 school signs on all approaches to Lincoln Jackson Academy to the campus on Dixon Avenue and Electric Street, establishing a crosswalk across Dixon Avenue to the parking lot in front of Lincoln Jackson Academy, establishing a designated pull-off area for students being dropped off and picked up near the crosswalk, establishing a crosswalk at the intersection of Dixon Avenue and Electric Street, establishing a no parking zone from a point 20 feet east of the easterly curb line of the driveway to the rear parking lot of Michael's School off of Electric Street to a point 20 feet west of the westerly curb line of the driveway to the rear parking lot of Michael's School off of Electric Street to improve traffic operations, pedestrian safety, and maintain adequate sight distance in a school zone.
What is the recommendation of the Chairperson for the Committee on Public Works?
As chairperson for the Committee of Public Works, I recommend final passage of item 7B.
Second?
On the question, roll call, please.
Mr. Smurl?
Yes.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Dr. Rothschild?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mr. King?
Yes. I hereby declare item 7B legally and lawfully adopted.
7C for consideration by the Committee on Rules for Adoption, Resolution Number 264, 2023, advocating for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania to raise the minimum wage.
As chairperson for the Committee on Rules, I recommend final passage of item 7C.
Second?
On the question, roll call, please.
Mr. Smurl?
Yes.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Dr. Rothschild?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mr. King?
Yes. I hereby declare item 7C legally and lawfully adopted.
7D for consideration by the Committee on Rules for Adoption, Resolution Number 265, 2023, appointment of Laurel Downs, Scranton, Pennsylvania, as first alternate member of the Environmental Advisory Council for a term of 3 years. Laurel Downs' term is effective June 1st, 2023, and will expire May 31st, 2026.
As chairperson of the Committee on Rules, I recommend final passage of item 7D.
Second?
On the question, roll call, please.
Mr. Smurl?
Yes.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Dr. Rothschild?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mr. King?
Yes. I hereby declare item 7D legally and lawfully adopted.
7E for consideration by the Committee on Rules for Adoption, Resolution Number 266, 2023, appointment of Tara Jones, Scranton, Pennsylvania, as second alternate member of the Environmental Advisory Council for a term from June 1st, 2023, and will expire May 31st, 2025.
As chairperson for the Committee on Rules, I recommend final passage of item 7E.
Second.
On the question, roll call, please.
Mr. Smurl?
Yes.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Dr. Rothschild?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mr. King?
Yes. I hereby declare item 7E legally and lawfully adopted.
7F, previously tabled, for consideration by the Committee on Rules for Adoption, Resolution Number 254, 2023, appointment of Coney Bennett, Scranton, Pennsylvania, as a member to the board of the Scranton Planning Commission for a term of 4 years. Coney Bennett's term will begin upon execution of the resolution and will expire on May 31st, 2027.
As chairperson for the Committee on Rules, I recommend a final vote of item 7F.
Second.
On the question. On the question, there's an indication that the administration indicated that this individual has withdrawn their name, and so I'm going to be voting no as a result of that.
Mr. Volden, did we ever get an answer as to whether the individual had a residence in the city or just a business?
We did not prior to the retraction.
From what I understand, they didn't get a response. They reached out.
Right, so I'm voting no because for the simple reason, policy, procedure, and I'm not for waivers, so this looked like it was going to be someone who doesn't live here and wouldn't provide proof that they did, so I'm a no.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Smurl?
No.
Mr. Schuster?
No.
Dr. Rothschild?
No.
Mr. McAndrew?
No.
Mr. King?
No. I hereby declare item 7F not passed. The Law Department requests the council to withdraw Ms. Bennett's appointment to the Planning Commission.
8th Order 8A, filed to Council Number 62, 2023.
This ordinance is the HUD 2023 Annual Action Plan. It's been tabled for 30 days to allow for public comment.
8B, filed to Council Number 64, 2023.
This ordinance has created overtime reporting requirements for all city departments and employees. It's been tabled until we receive additional information from the administration. If there's no further business, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Meeting's adjourned. Thank you.